All right, welcome to the Walk Around podcast, where our goal is to share with you the insights, the skills, the processes, and the leaders that are influencing the retail automotive landscape today. I'm Nick Funch. I'm your host today. And joining us is Chris Vester. Chris is the COO and visionary of Hubert Vester Automotive Group. Chris has spent 30 years in the automotive industry across both fixed and variable departments. He was co-founder of the digital retailing platform GoGo Car, which was recently acquired by OptionSoft Technologies. He's a devoted husband for 24 years to Suzanne and proud father of 3 incredible daughters, Avery, Gabrielle, and Shelby. Let's take a walk around with Chris. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, maybe we should pause automotive talk for a second. I have 2 daughters myself. You could probably teach me a thing or two about raising girls, huh?
It's super rewarding, and definitely presents challenges. But I've been ridiculously blessed with my children. I mean, they're all super high achievers and self-driven. And my oldest started creating a business when she was like the 7th grade. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. But 3 completely different personalities, and I think that's the hard part of raising kids is adapting to personality.
Well, there's nothing quite like or quite as rewarding as being a parent, no doubt about it. But I think there's a lot of things that can carry over into how we run our businesses, which maybe we'll get into that a little bit too. But before we get there, maybe give us a little bit of background of how you got started in automotive retail.
Oh, wow. So I say 30 years ago. I'm only 48, so I'm not. It makes me sound super old to say 30 years. But 17, 18 years old, my dad was he was an investor, a piece of a dealership, which I worked in the detail department there, along with 3 other jobs. It was just one of the things I did at 17, 18, just trying to earn date money. And then 2 years later, he became a 50-50 partner in the dealership in the town about an hour and a half from us. And I started college. So all through college, weekends, time off, summers, I spent doing fixed ops more than anything, working in the parts department, doing parts counter work, working in the service department, doing write-up, ASM stuff. And we had this was 1991, 92, small, tiny little dealership. And so, and fixed ops wasn't the thing. It was kind of we work on cars too. It was all about sales. And to the point that we didn't even really schedule anything much more than oil changes on Saturday. But one of my war stories was I show up on Saturday and the one technician that we had to do oil changes that day didn't show up, and we had a bank full of scheduled oil changes. So I was the parts guy, the wrench turner, the write-up, the cashier, all for that day. But I didn't die, so it was okay. But all the way through college, did the fixed op side of things, got out. My last year of college, I spent a lot of time working with our F&I manager at the time, really learning the finance side of things. So graduated, went to Dearborn to Forbes F&I school, and got out. And that was my first management job, was doing F&I for a dealership that we had purchased in the western part of the state that was about 4 hours away, and did that for 2 years. Then moved into the used car side of things, working deals, acquiring used cars. And I was on the road for all of 2004 doing just used car acquisition for our entire group, going from auction to auction, all over the country buying cars. And then came back and became the general manager of our Honda dealership and did that for 9 years. And then in 2014, my father moved me into the COO role. And then we started really working on culture and where we were headed, where we were going to be in 10 years, and started doing a process called EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating Systems by Gino Wickman, where you actually assign the role of visionary. And that was what they saw me as, is where are we headed? And because I kind of see things differently. I've been told I see things differently. So becoming the visionary and CEO of the company in 2014. So.
Okay. And so a couple of things. I think one, I think about your war story you just shared, and there's nothing quite like on the job training, right? Baptism by fire, and um, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's always interesting to me that we're made of a lot more than we think we are, and sometimes kind of getting thrown into that environment really allows that skill set resiliency to shine.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have this motto, but I definitely believe that you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no better way to do that than just throw yourself into uncomfortable situations and then learn to deal with them. Just get really comfortable and settle in and go, okay, well, how? Let's just take it step by step by step. So there's definitely some value in baptism by fire.
Yeah.
We don't see it when we're in it, but it's definitely value there.
So, and couldn't agree more there. 2014, you set out on kind of a 10-year plan. Sounds like is that right?
Yeah, that was kind of where it started.
Yeah, and
2017 is where we started. 2014, it was moving into the CRO role. 2017 was where we really started diving into say where we're going to be in 10 years.
And what drove that? I mean, I think retail automotive, it can be kind of your next 30 days, and you're just focused on the next 30 days. As I think about looking 10 years ahead in retail automotive, what kind of drove that decision for you and for the group?
Well, you look back at 30 years, and I think I counted, or somebody counted for me the other day. I think we've been through like 8 recessions in 30 years.
Wow.
And every time we go through one of those hiccups, it's the automotive industry is one of the first things that they look at as a measuring tool. It's always housing and automotive. And how do you figure out a way to recession proof the business of automotive? And I saw that as just when you build and start selling a relationship, which takes a lot of transparency and not make it so transactional. We had just come through 2010 and when 2014, when I was moved into that position, and we went through all of 2008, 9, and 10 and never lost an employee, which I was super proud of. So we had done something right. But just seeing the ups and the downs and seeing the dissatisfaction with the whole process of automotive buying from the public. I think every year they do a list of jobs, of the worst jobs to have in America. And I think we are right above drug dealer. So it's the public doesn't really enjoy the process, and just saying, okay, well, how in the next 10 years is that process going to evolve? What are we going to have to move to? Who's going to be the big players in the space, and how do we get ahead of it as local business? Because being local, there's a lot of value in that. I think that local people see the value of having the local dealer, but they also want the transparency and the ease of doing business that they get from everything else. So that's and I think that's largely the local part of it. So you got to have a massively strong culture so people know what you're involved in. And then looking at it on a macro level, okay, how do we compete with the bigger guys and bigger players in the space of just retail as a whole, not necessarily automotive?
So you talked about recognizing kind of some of the pain points consumers had with the automotive process. What was the biggest drivers that you found within your group? And I guess more importantly, what did you do to try to solve for that?
So in our group, if you ask people what their biggest pain point is, it's time. It takes way too much time and the lack of transparency. So 2015, worked on a project and actually completed the project called GoGo Car, where we actually had a completely transparent sales process, all digitally done, where we created for a dealership website the ability to sell a car completely front to back online. And all they had to do, they did have to come in and physically sign because we're a wet signature state. So all of our title work and stuff has to be wet signatures. But they could price the car, get their car appraised in real time with real appraisals. That somebody was actually looking at the car inside of 9 minutes. They could get a number on their car that actually had profitability built in for the dealer. Not a lot, but some. So the dealer didn't lose the ability to have profitability in the trade. It carried them through the F&I menu process, offered up all of our products, and then actually could submit the deal into Route 1, directly into Route 1. And we took that whole process just to remove as many pain points as possible. The customer could leave and come back and start over right where they left off from. They could come into the dealership and say, hey, I've been online, and we could look up their customer number and start exactly where they left off. Just made it way more transparent and way easier to go through and saved a ton of time. I mean, we had customers that were in and out, and the only time they were here was to sign paperwork. So 35, 40 minutes tops.
Wow. And so this is something that you built from the ground up.
We did build from the ground up.
That's great.
I had this idea. I went to NADA in 2015 looking for anything that can make it as easy as Amazon to buy a car. And there was nothing. And I expressed that to the guy that was handling my marketing at the time. And he said, it's funny, you sound like my buddy Tony. He's got the same idea you do. I need to put you guys together. And that was in March of 2015. And by June, we began building the project. And by the end of middle of 16, it was completed. So the idea in the beginning was to actually create like almost like an auto trader that was transactional. We wanted like not for the individual dealer, but just for an individual dealer could house his inventory there. We could process the transaction for him as a lead source almost. And then we had some dealers, we had some website companies that said, hey, we would like to be able to offer this as a dealer for their website. So we kind of shifted gears and said, okay, we'll just offer it on individual websites because we built the idea of GoGo, but how do you get dealers there and inventory there, but there's no customers, and how do you get customers there if there's no inventory? So it was kind of like, how do we go first? But if we could get dealers to put it on their website, we would have access to the inventory.
Yeah.
But they could complete the transaction themselves. So it was completely ground up, and we went all the way through to even include it in marketing. So we built a marketing platform off of it that could, inside of an email, they could begin the process from an email. It was completely full circle. The problem is we had no sales team to sell it. And when you go to dealers and you say, hey, look at this, and they're like, oh my God, that's like, it's complete. It's front to back, it includes marketing. It's like, wow. And then you go, okay, do you want to sign up? And they go, well, we're not ready for that. and whether the customer's ready, you need to be ready. OptionSoft Technology just actually acquired it from us, and they've got a sales team. So I'm excited to see where it goes in their hands.
That's great. And I love kind of that holistic ecosystem, and then kind of starting with the customer's pain points in mind. And I think it probably led to a lot of the success you had, and probably points to a lot of success in the future. Well, you brought up something though, that kind of dealers and their appetite for meeting the customer on their turf. I'm just interested in kind of your thoughts, and you've been on the forefront, kind of adjusting to that. The industry is probably behind that at some point. What are some of your thoughts around that?
I think we got to meet the customer where they are.
Okay.
Because they're comfortable there. They're getting more and more used to that. I mean, you think about the idea of COVID. It was funny. The dealers that said we're not ready for that, I bet they wish they had it in April and May. Like the ability to truly retail a car and to meet the customer where they are. Who knows when we come out of all this, all the changes that we'll see. But the comfort level of the customer to be able to buy things in their terms on their turf. And we've got to get comfortable doing that. We just got to realize that some of it's not in that big headbanger deal. A lot of dealers still like that big headbanger deal, but sometimes it's in the churn of the efficiency of handling 6 deals in the same amount of time that you handle that one headbanger. And what does that create for you, especially if the customer has an incredible experience, so they're going to come back and maybe next time, because you built the relationship and it's not just a transaction, the negotiation is different, Yeah.
So speaking of that, how did it equate to your performance within the store, either customer experience or, did you see an impact there, positive, neutral?
A couple of pain points. Salespeople were scared to death. Managers were scared to death because they could see that it could eliminate some of them. But on the positive side of things, we put it into a dealer group that had 5 rooftops. And he took 2 of his receptionists who had never sold a car before, and gave them every lead that was a lease turn in, and anybody that came from it was 3 different lead sources. And they actually, through contacting the customer, walking them through the process online, had never sold a car before. And these 2 ladies sold 78 cars in 1 month.
Wow.
So he was able, looking at it, his F&I side, he went from 1.4 products per delivery to 2.1 products per delivery through the process, because 100% of the time they got to see 100% of the products.
Right.
Which most F&I managers are going to look at what's going to pay them the most, and that's what they spend the time selling. So his products per delivery went up, so profitability per deal went up, and because he was having these quote unquote specialists that were paid on a salary basis, his payroll went down. So and efficiencies went up. So everything from the dealer's point of view was a positive, except for the fear of turning over that much transparency to the customer. And they just don't realize that people are, if they're that comfortable buying, they're more likely to spend some money on the back end of the deal as well. So it was positive.
Yeah, I've always thought, like, if somebody wants to research enough, they're going to find the information, and I think we would be wise to provide it in kind of an upfront manner whenever we can and however we can. It makes, I think, the transaction overall that much better. Hubert Vester, I think, has a really cool mantra around customer's journey is our priority. Did that come out of this kind of visionary planning, or where did that come from?
It did. And actually, our purpose, when we ask people, what do we do? It's not selling service cars. Our purpose is to enrich every life we touch by providing an incredible dealership experience. That's where it got started. So we decided that was going to be our purpose. And one of the general managers said, if we could just make the customer's journey our priority, how much do things change? I'm like, man, that's a tagline in and of itself.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
We just adopted it because it's true. It is a journey. And the journey is not just that one individual transaction. I mean, the journey is from the first purchase point to the point they're servicing with you, that it's time to trade. It's the journey of life. So it's not just the journey of that one particular transaction. And that's what we tell customers when they're here. It's, we don't look at your journey as just this transaction. We're looking to be here for the long haul for you. So your journey is for sure our priority. And it resonates. I mean, people understand it.
And how do you reinforce that throughout kind of the either marketing or branding? Because I know it's just not a statement. There are things that you provide customers to kind of reinforce that.
We do. And so even to the point that we developed our own greeting that was unlike anything else, because we know that they can go shop anywhere. And we're just appreciative of the fact that they came and shopped here. So even in our greeting, we talk about our purpose of why we're here. And we talk about our core values. And I can tell you, culture is probably the hardest thing to cultivate because one wrong move can send it south. But even in our so we got the greeting that we talk about our core values, we talk about our purpose. We work that into everything we can. And we give them what's called the Vester Assurance, is a Vester guarantee, and where we offer, less than an hour that we get you out of here. From the time you make a decision, our commitment is to get you on the road to enjoy your car in less than an hour. We do a 7-day exchange policy. So inside of 7 days, a full week, if they decide that car is not the car they're looking for, they can bring it back and we can do an exchange for them. So we offer, we guarantee that we'll offer money more than anybody else, just trade value that they bring somebody appraisal. I mean, there's just a lot of ways that we try to, on the monetary side of things and the ease of doing business and the transparency. I mean, we're the only ones that I know of doing 7 days. I can't think of anybody else.
That's great.
And the crazy thing is we've been doing that for, I think, 3 years. And I think in 3 years, less than 20 people have done an exchange.
Wow. Well, I think consumers, it's nice to know, right? It helps them feel better about who they're doing business with and why they're doing business with them. But you spoke a little bit about the challenges around culture. Maybe it's not challenge, but the muscles that the effort required to cultivate culture within the store. And it's one thing to kind of have the company mantra and the company direction around that. How do you do that? Like, how do you cultivate your team to carry that message forward to the customer? Are there things that you focus on?
Yeah. So we have training meetings every morning. I'm sure a lot of dealerships do the same thing, but we spend as much time training them on what it means to practice and emit our core values and live those as much as we do training on product knowledge or training on walkarounds or training on closes. It's all in fact, today in our sales meeting, one of the things I talked about is providing value. Every time you touch a customer, you got to wonder, how am I going to provide them value? It's not always about selling them a car. We do a lot of things in the community. And if we let them know what we're doing, who knows what kind of value that will add to them? Because it may touch somebody they know. Something we're doing maybe attached to somebody that's in their family. But we definitely talked about bringing the value. And I said, everybody in the group has autonomy to make a ton of decisions. Like we give every employee, or try to give every employee, the ability to make decisions. And I said, as long as you make the decision based on one thing, does it enrich their life and does it give them an incredible dealership experience, then you're making the right decision. If you have a fork in the road, ask yourself which one of those meets the vision. Which one of those meets our purpose? If you choose that, it's always right. And we live that. I mean, we in fact, when somebody brings me a dilemma, I ask them which one's going to give them a better experience and which one's going to enrich their life. That's the only way you can do it, is to live it and throw it back and let them make the decision. And when they make the decision, they feel good about the decision and they realize that they've got some autonomy. They've got some power to make the decision as long as they make it based on our purpose.
Well, I love that. I love two things about that. Number one, it kind of gives you this beacon when you're potentially kind of stuck about which way to go, and helps you pick the right path. The question is inherently customer centric, right? And it puts their needs in front of kind of whatever impact the dealership, whatever impact there is to the dealership or the group. But so we're coming through this pandemic. You kind of prepared through some of your visionary statements. How did some of that pre-preparation help you? And potentially, what did you learn about how you can accelerate some of that
now? It did. Oh man, that's a good question. So probably the hardest thing about being in the position I'm in a situation where we've never faced it before. If you're given that title and the responsibility of being the visionary for the company, and all of a sudden somebody puts a blindfold on you because you're facing something that's never been faced before. I mean, even we talked about some of the things that had happened in the last decade or 2 decades, like 9/11. Everything shut down for 2 days. Like, it was quiet for 2 days.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it started generating, hey, we're going to be okay. Like, we're going to take action. We're a country. We're united. We're going to take action and we'll be okay. The recession of 2008-9 with the tech bubble popping. I mean, who would have seen that coming? But we came out of that. We were told in March this would be a 2-week flatten the curve, and here we are 6 months later, and we're still in this mess. And to sit in front of your team and say, "Look, I'm the visionary. I have no idea where we're headed." Just being that transparent, and then hopefully things that we have done that have worked out gives them some confidence in we're always going to make the right decision at the leadership level, that we're going to analyze everything and move forward through all of this. And that's what we did. It was a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. I mean, I was on a ton of board calls, like, where are we headed? How do we handle the PPP loans? But more than anything, we spent a lot of time in our sales meetings training on, look, when everything's back to normal, we got to be great. We've got to be better than we were. We got to come out of this better than we were going in. If we've got the time now where we're seeing less customers, and let's spend more time training on how to give them a better experience, so that when they do come back and we see them again, they want to do business with us, and then they tell their friends about us because we're different.
Well, so Chris, I think one of the things that makes great leaders is vulnerability, and I think you just told us how you demonstrated it and how that kind of is translated to the culture in your team, and that ability for anybody, it doesn't matter what level you are, to kind of say, I don't know, but I know we're going to figure it out together, and we're going to make the best decisions with the information that we have, is really powerful. And kudos to you and the Hubert Vester team for kind of embracing that unknown, embracing that blindfold, and walking through it. So, yeah. So, couple things I learned today that maybe I would just pass on to our team, and Chris, certainly thank you for your time. Number one, the importance of transparency and how critical that is to a customer experience, and to your team's experience, being transparent as possible. The importance of a strong culture, and because it translates to that customer experience. And then lastly, like, provide value in every transaction, every interaction, I think is what you spoke about, is find ways. It doesn't all have to be kind of a zero sum, I sold you something. find a way to enrich that customer experience and provide value to them, no matter where they're at. So it's definitely, I got some notes, and I'm appreciative of your time today, Chris. And one last question: where can some of our listeners find you if they want to get some more information or get to know you better?
So definitely on LinkedIn. I'm
Okay.
there. Just look at Christopher Vester. My most active spot is Instagram.
Okay.
It's HV Auto COO, as in Hubert Vester Auto Group COO. There's 340 episodes of Answers from the Stairs, which is IGTV series I did, where literally whatever comes to my mind while I'm doing my morning cardio on my stair mill, I just kind of share those. I listen to podcasts. I read a ton of books. And when I hear something that's articulated better than I can, it gives me the opportunity to share it, because sometimes it's exactly what's on my mind. I just don't know how to put it out in words. But there's 340 episodes, and you can't BS your way through 340 episodes. If you watch those 340 episodes, you'll see exactly who I am as a leader, and what I'm trying to create as a business. And then on Facebook, my page is pretty public, so it's Chris Vester on Facebook. Those three places are where I'm the most active. Instagram by far my most active.
Well, I'm going to check out the From the Stairs for sure. And then we'll make sure to link to all of those in the comments below this episode. So, Chris, thanks for your time. Any parting words for the walk around audience?
I appreciate it. And just keep those transactions transparent and improve that process for the customer, and you'll see amazing growth. I promise.
Well, thanks, Chris. I enjoyed getting to learn a little bit more about your story and having a little bit walk around about how you approach the business. So thanks for your time.